Absolute Legends is something that I'm going to be doing a lot more of now. I really enjoyed making the Dale Earnhardt video, and I really enjoyed researching this video. I put a lot of time into this, and I'm going to make it great. Everyone knows who this person is. Everyone knows. Everyone knows his movies. Cool Runnings, Uncle Buck, The Great Outdoors, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Without further ado, feel the rhythm, feel the rhyme, buckle up. It's John Candy time. John Candy was born October 31st, 1950. His mother was Polish descent and his father was English descent. They both immigrated to Canada in the early 1900s. They were both Roman Catholic and raised John the same way. When John was just 5 years old, his father died of a heart attack, and he was only 35. During John's school career at Neil McNeil Catholic School, I know, what a name, Neil McNeil meant. He loved football, and he played offensive tackle for the school's football team until he sustained an unfortunate injury to his knees, and he could not play anymore. Unfortunate as that may be, he then turned to drama and journalism, where he found another passion, which was acting. It was also during high school that John started smoking. And he continued smoking for nearly his whole life. He would smoke roughly a pack a day, and as a teenager, that's quite a lot. It's quite a lot. But after high school, he went to Centennial College to further grasp journalism, and then after college, he went to McMaster's University for higher education. During 1971, John's acting career started to take off. He started getting into several plays, and then he actually made his first TV debut, which was for the show Police Surgeon. The next year, he moved to Chicago to work at Second City, where he would meet future stars and a lot of his lifelong friends, such as Catherine O'Hara, Eugene Levy, Rick Moranis, Harold Ramis, all these soon-to-be stars. At Second City, though, he also started doing drugs, and he got a massive cocaine addiction from it. During the next few years, John would make many more appearances on TV, working with his fellow stars at Second City. He was getting a lot more roles, bigger roles, better roles, not just being in the background doing something. He was starting to blossom into a great actor, and it was not long before he got asked to start doing movies. The first movie John Candy appeared in was Lost and Found in 1979. He was playing the role of a carpenter. It wasn't a great role for your first movie, but he was getting there, and he was getting out there. His next movie was a slightly larger role with some familiar faces that he worked with at Second City, such as Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi. And it was the movie 1941. The film, it didn't do very good, but it wasn't complete garbage. So, I mean, it wasn't too bad. John went back to Canada to appear in some more TV shows and a few Canadian movies. It wasn't long after before he got called up by Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi to do The Blues Brothers, a movie that was very big at the time, and it was definitely a lot better than 1941, and it really got his name out there. During the year 1980, John went to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, to do an experimental journalism piece on partygoers during this Halloween fest they had going on down there. Only 2 episodes of it aired, and most of it was just drunk party kids just having fun dressed up in monster makeup. During 1981, John went back into movies. He got the role in the movie Stripes, which did very well. It was one of the best movies of the year. He played an army recruit named Dewey Oxburger, but everyone just called him Ox. I'm sure you could guess why.
I'm gonna walk out of here a lean, mean fighting machine.
In the movie, Bill Murray plays a man named John Winger, who has just quit his job as a taxi driver. After doing such, he loses his car and his home, and then convinces his best friend, Russell, who's played by Harold Ramis, to join the army with him. It's during this time when they get into basic training that they meet Dewey, John Candy, and they get up to some antics and such, pissing off Drill Sergeant and many others. Later the same year, he voiced many characters in an animated movie called Heavy Metal, and one of the characters he did was Den, and the creator was so impressed with how well he played the character that he singled him out from everyone else and said that his performance was excellent. Later on in the year, John went on to host Saturday Night Live, and this was his first time ever doing it, and he did very well. He did very well that the writers wanted him to come back and host more often, but usually they would cancel on him due to staffing changes. Bob Odenkirk claimed that he was the most burned Saturday Night Live host ever, due to them just canceling on him last minute all the time. For the next 2 years, John would mostly focus on his TV career at Second City and a few TV shows in Canada, until he got called up for the part in the 1983 National Lampoon Vacation, which absolute classic movie. Classic. In the movie, John is playing a security guard guarding the gates to Wally World that the Griswolds are trying to break into because they've had absolutely enough of all the setbacks and stupid shit happening to ruin their vacation. John, being a good security guard, started asking a lot of questions, and then Clark ended up pulling a gun on him, and as many other people would have done, he froze and started panicking. Shortly after that movie, he got called up to do Splash with Tom Hanks playing the womanizing brother, and some critics claim that this was his best performance of his entire career. He was very good in the movie, very convincing. He played the part very well. The next year, John was approached by the writers of Ghostbusters, wanting to give him the role of Louis Tully, the accountant who lived next door to the lady whose apartment was haunted by a demon. But due to issues and conflict between how he wanted to play the role and how the writers wanted him to play it, he ended up giving the role to Rick Moranis, who did act in the movie and did very well in my part. But I did not know that John Candy was even close to being considered for Ghostbusters. I can already see how awesome that movie would have been if he was in it. If it would have been better. I'm sorry, it would have been better. Just him hitting on the lady, yeah, it would have just been good. It would have been good. He did end up regretting it so bad that he couldn't work things out. But he did end up making other contributions to the film, such as being in the Ghostbusters song and in the music video. In 1985, John landed a role for Brewster's Millions, playing the role of Richard Pryor's brother. And the film did great. It did great. It was good at the box office. It was a good movie. I enjoyed it. It was a good movie. The rest of the movies that year for John did not do well. They did not do well. But that wasn't really the point. A lot of actors make trash movies, right? There's lots. He didn't really care about making a really good movie. He just wanted to make people laugh. That was all he did. That was all he loved to do. Was make people laugh and bring smiles to people's faces. In 1987, John was approached by the writers of Spaceballs, wanting him to play Barf the Mog, half man, half dog.
Barf! Always when I'm eating. Give me paw!
The movie was a spoof of Star Wars, and it was a very low-budget film. But despite all that, it was a hit. Either you really liked it or you really didn't like it. And there was a lot more people that liked it than didn't. I loved the movie. It's so fucking funny. Hilarious. My favorite. I would watch it right now. I would. Straight up. It's that good of a movie.
She's gone from suck to blow.
After Spaceballs, John landed the movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, co-starring with Steve Martin. They made the movie an absolute hit. In the movie, Steve Martin is playing a father trying to get home for Thanksgiving with his family. On the way, he runs into John Candy, who is playing a salesman who sells shower curtain rings. John steals the cab from Steve and takes off to the airport to catch a flight to Chicago, because he is also going there. Steve ends up making it to the airport just in time for his flight to be delayed. But they did end up getting on the plane and sat side by side, where they somewhat talked. It was mostly John annoying him. The plane ended up getting rerouted and landing in Wichita, where they then both got a hotel room and spent the night there in a tiny, tiny bed.
Why are you holding my hand?
They end up getting a ride from this creepy, hick, backwoods dude who takes them to a town for them to hop on a train and hopefully get to Chicago. But en route to Chicago, the train breaks down, and they end up having to walk a mile to the road, where they get picked up and then taken to St. Louis, where they try to rent a car. Now, Steve tries to rent a car, and he gets the keys and he gets everything he needs. The bus drops him off, but his car's not there. So he has to walk all the way back to the airport, to the car rental place, where he then screams and yells at the lady at the counter.
I want a fucking car.
And she informs him because he does not have his rental agreement, he is fucked.
You're fucked.
It is at that point where he is pissed, walks outside, and demands for a taxi to Chicago, where he then gets punched in the face and nearly run over by John, who just got his own car. But thankfully, nothing happened. So the two set off in their car, heading for Chicago. On the way, John is driving, and he nearly crashes the car after getting his jacket stuck, both sleeves, trying to take it off. But he manages to not die and stops the car safely. He then gets on the freeway, going the wrong direction, nearly collides with two semis, pulls over out of sheer shock, and they both exit the vehicle. The vehicle then starts on fire and nearly burns to the ground. But still drivable, they drive it to the next town where they get a motel room with $15 and Steve's watch. Steve, pissed off at Candy, pretty much leaves him out in the snow until he comes to his senses and is like, all right, bro, you can come and spend some time with me. They end up crashing the car into the hotel room, and then they leave. Shortly after that, on the highway, they get pulled over for speeding because their speedometer melted and they didn't know how fast they were going. The car got impounded, obviously, because it was just destroyed. Eventually, through all this pain and absolute trash, they finally make it to Chicago, and Steve heads home to his family. Upon about to arrive at home, he realizes that John came to Chicago because he really had nowhere else to go, because he pieces it together that his wife had died. Feeling bad that John had nowhere to go, he invited him over for Thanksgiving with his family. Shortly after that movie, The Great Outdoors came out, starring Dan Aykroyd and John Candy as lead roles. Another perfect movie, well executed, hilarious. And then right after that, Uncle Buck came out. Another absolute classic movie that everyone knows. Everyone knows John Candy for Uncle Buck. And they know him from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Or Barf from Spaceballs. These four movies solidified him as one of the greatest actors at the time. To this day, I still watch all of those four movies religiously. And you know what? I still laugh my ass off every single time. John's next big movie was Home Alone. He didn't have a major part in the movie, but he didn't really mind because he was acting with his best friend, Catherine O'Hara. And those two have been friends since the very beginning at Second City and were friends all the way up till John Candy's death. He didn't play the big role. He also did the movie for $417. He accepted the absolute bare minimum that he could accept for that movie. Just because he knew it was a Christmas movie. He knew it was going to be big. He didn't want any of the money. He just wanted to act with his friends and make people laugh. Despite Home Alone being such a huge hit, John's career began to flatline. So he started picking up more serious roles to change it up. In the movie JFK, John plays a shady Southern lawyer, and again, the film did great. It did great. People say that is his best work because the way he could change up from being this funny, laughable comedian, now he's this serious lawyer playing a serious role, not laughed at or anything. It just shows his range as an actor. John got back into his comedic talent for the movie Cool Runnings in 1993. The movie about the Jamaican bobsled team trying to make the Winter Olympics in 1988. Personally, I think this is one of the most feel-good movies that you could ever watch. It's just great. So many obstacles in front of these guys, and yet they still overcome until the end when they, crash their bobsled. Yikes. But still a good movie. Now, during all these years, John knew that his health wasn't very great. And he also knew that his father's heart disease was genetic, and that he could have a chance of having a bad heart too. this has kind of scared him due to him being 300 pounds, smoking a pack a day, drinking, and snorting more cocaine than Scarface. So he had reason to be a little bit worried about his health. And he did diet and exercise and tried to quit smoking, quit the drugs, all that things. He just never could get it to stick. John got another movie called Wagons East, and he had to go to Mexico to film it. John did not like flying ever. He hated it, actually. He preferred taking vehicles on land, such as trains or cars. Trains and automobiles. Anyways, he got to Mexico, started filming the Wagons East movie, and during the filming, the cast members started to notice that John wasn't acting the same, and that he would be more sweatier than usual, and just not the same. After a long day of filming, and John personally saying that was some of his best work that he's done on this film, he cooked the staff and the crew a nice meal before bed. After the meal, John went to his room and went to sleep. The next morning, the cast and crew didn't see John on set, so they went to check on him and found him dead in his bed. He had passed away from heart failure in his sleep. John's funeral was held at St. Martin of Tours Catholic Church in Los Angeles. He was entombed in a mausoleum in Culver City. On March 18th, 1994, his personal friends, mostly from the movies he created with them together, and his family, all had a nice quiet little ceremony so the public couldn't wreck their lives. Dan Aykroyd read the eulogy at this funeral. Due to John Candy dying during the middle of the filming for Wagons East, the film was completed using stunt doubles and special effects so that they could keep his work without having to just scrap the whole movie. The movie released 5 months after his death, but his last movie that ever released was Canadian Bacon due to it just taking forever to release. John Candy was in 36 movies or more and was considered for many other movies upcoming, but due to him passing away, those just got scrapped. John was a selfless guy. He was kind, funny, and just selfless. He would constantly be giving money to charities like the Make-A-Wish Foundation and the Pediatric AIDS Foundation. He would also rescue animals from shelters that were going to be put down unless someone found a home for them. The dude was he's one of those great people, you know? He's not one of those people that just do it for the money or do it for the fame. He did it because he liked making people laugh. And he did it because he liked making people feel good. Absolute legend.